What's happening, guys? I am finally getting around to shooting this video on the Buck Honemaster. Now this was made in the 70s and 80s, I believe. What this does is clamp to the back of your knife, and you can adjust it, the claw here, that'll clamp onto your spine with this little wheel and pivot portion here. But you clamp this on the back of your knife, and this gives you a set angle to sharpen it. I've reviewed several different models that are similar to this. The most basic being the Nano angle guide here. This is just a piece of plastic with like a ceramic material right here that will ride against your stone. And just like the Buck, it clips to the back of your spine and gives you a set angle to run across your stone. This is roughly $12 to $15, give or take. Works really well. Problem with all of these devices though, you can't adjust the angle. Whatever is set between the spine of your knife and the actual edge bevel and the height of this thing will determine what your angle is. The few that I have seen and used generally come in around 22 to 18 degrees per side, give or take. It's not an exact science. This one really reminds me of the razor edge system, which is this guy right here. I don't even know if they still sell this thing. I know the Buck is no longer in production. I got this off eBay. The razor edge system though is very similar. It uses Allen keys to screw and clamp down upon your knife. It has a lot of shortcomings. I've used this in I think 2 or 3 videos. So if you're interested in seeing this, definitely check my channel out. Just like the Buck, this is going to wear as you run it across your abrasive. It's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. Bad thing obviously being eventually you're going to wear the guide out. Good thing is the more you wear it down, the more acute your angle will become. So if it's starting out at like 22 degrees and you start wearing it down, eventually it may get down to 18, 19, somewhere in there, and you'll have a more acute bevel. This is the box it came in. Has a little instruction manual on how to use the device. Pretty straightforward. They show, I guess, doing it's like circles. Anyway, we're going to skip this portion and just go straight at it. What I'm going to do here is cut the edge off of this knife. I'm not sure where the angle is going to be, so I'm going to mark it with Sharpie so we can get an idea. Right now this is free-handed at roughly 18 degrees per side. I'll try to center this in the knife, give or take. Not exact science, not really sweating that kind of thing. It's got a little rubber grommet inside here. So I don't think there's going to be a need to tape the blade up. That is one of the issues with not only the Nano but the razor edge system. As it rests upon the spine of your knife, it will scratch the surface face. Just like all these other devices I've used on this knife. This thing's been scratched up pretty good. It is a user, so I really don't care too much about that. Just checking to make sure this thing is secure. It's pretty locked in. Looks fairly even. I don't know, what do you guys think? Does one side look like it might be more obtuse than the other? Yeah, if it is, it'll show up in the bevel. Now, like I said, we're going to go ahead and dull this. That edge is flat, flat, flat. You can see the light reflecting back at us. So, got a completely dulled edge, and I'm going to mark this with Sharpie just to see where where we're grinding at first. The stones I'm using tonight are the Pride Abrasive. I'm going from 220 to 8K. I may even break out the 10K. We'll see how it goes. This knife is in a budget steel, so I really don't think it's necessary to go such a high grit. First things first, like I said, just going to see where this thing is sharpening at. And that removed pretty much all of my Sharpie. So there's my Sharpie marker. I'm going to try this side. Yeah, that is pretty close to where my current bevel is. So this shouldn't be any problem at all. We're just going to go at this. I've dulled the edge out completely. The idea is you want to keep the guide and the knife on the stone at all times. I'm going to try to keep more pressure pushing forward into the edge so I don't ride on this guide as much as possible anyway. I'm obviously going to get some abrasion on it, but I'm going to try to limit the amount if I can. This stone is very, very porous. It just zips through water like nobody's business. It's a 220, but it is pretty aggressive. Like I said, this is a fairly economical kitchen cutlery, so the steel on it is not like modern stainless with high vanadium carbides or anything like that. So it shouldn't take too much to bring the edge back. Now with a device like this, you can very easily just switch hands. I'm not great sharpening with my other hand. About the only thing it's good for is washing my right. So this is the 1000 grit Pride Abrasive stone. If you've never used the Pride stones, they are made in the USA, which is an excellent thing. However, like most US sharpening stone makers, their stones seem to be rated at a different grit level than what you see the Japanese knives. So they're more, they're coarser than their grit rating would lead you to believe. So just something to be aware of. Your 1K, if you were to get one, may not act like your 1K Japanese water stone. It may act more like a I don't know, 600, 800 grit. Something to be aware of. They're 10K stone, which I'll show. So I think I might actually take this up to 10K. Their 10K stone is rated at 1 micron, abrasive size. So it's very, very fine. I've given up on trying to limit the wear on the guide. At this point, I don't really care. Just gonna go with it as designed. But if you were trying to keep this thing as pristine as possible, you could maybe even think about using, I came off the stone there, you can maybe even think about putting electrical tape or something on there to help prolong the life. Again, I bought this thing to use it. I'm just gonna go with it as is. I was gonna try to limit some of the wear, but at this juncture, who cares? Let's rinse and repeat. I do some burr minimization passes. All right, good enough. This is the 3000 grit. Now it's going to become more and more difficult to fill the burr the higher we go. So I'm just gonna have to use intuition and the fill of the edge. Not sure if this is coming through on the video, but this stone is pretty loud. Kind of gives you an idea of how coarse this 3K is. This is what I would consider probably most 1K stones. This is the 8000 grit. I made mention I was going to take it to 10K. I'm just going to concentrate on this stone for just a few moments, just get a few passes on it, and then we'll break the 10,000 grit out. Like the 10K, the stone feels pretty glazed. What I mean by that, it just feels like you're running across a ceramic or a piece of glass. Using that rust eraser probably didn't help. Okay, this is the last stone. This is the 10K. I had to run water across it for about 3 or 4 minutes. Last time I used it, I would have swore this was a splash and go stone, but it did absorb just this tiny bit of water. So All the pride stones appear to be soaking stones, every single one of them. Before, I believe I mentioned that this stone is supposed to be rated at 1 micron. This thing is terribly fine. It's making a lot of noise because I'm kind of pushing down on it, putting some pressure on this thing. At this high of a grit, probably the last thing you want to do, but I'm doing it. Stropping tonight, I'm using my Dlt Xl leather strop. It's just got white compound. It took out some of the frostiness, but not all of it. The main apex is definitely mirror polished. Cutting pretty clean. This is just cheap paper towel. Give you guys a final look at this. That's going to do it for tonight, guys. Does the Buck Honemaster work? Yes, absolutely. I wish it were a little more user-friendly, maybe easier to use like the Nano, but it gets the job done. I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions or comments, as always, leave them down below. Y'all have a good one.